Dema jimden de jejava rajama yana zobe sanje riba da shazunde deva shevan jeden kemba jevon deve kaluju lana meva lana menanje demba sanje jimden bejava shaja duba la chaza mojo do javucho dema jimden de jejava rajama yana zobe sanje riba da shazunde bandevre jiden kemba jevon deve kaluju lana Kada menanje damba sanje chumden de bejo. Shaja tuba la cha jama chudo jazo cheyo. Damba chumden de shen shema cha chumba yanda. Zobe sanje riba da shazo damba devareche. Jiden jamba jubun deva kano juba la. Kada menanje damba sanje chumden de bejo. Shaja tuba la cha jama chudo jazo cheyo. Kanze kanye zobo jadam sajan denga komba dubra. Mane jiden dena choche sumo deze keba jama chahaze. Namda gunga chodo suzan wa yishe jazu seje numba. Taba jiden suna lame ba angu bo chunye jama chahaze. Chenjon denba jimen da veshe sendon dawa jama chahaze. Dire jana seba suma jen nyame chenchen jama chahaze. Gomba duje chedenba tamche jembe tenba bu sonama yende dishin shanla chan atselo tabyen de cha chunga ju kebe nge zonde ke chedo tenama shogyo wa shinju jama cha atselo chunga chunga ma yen laba tala rabdo nye shinga tamba yende genduen la ya cha atselo dikwa chinya me she shinga wa puso zobo rangi semne yonzo deyo tena sanje tenba ye karma ra re Yuma seva chuburu da melalo da tenda dushe shanam deduru. Sonam diya tamche seba ye koba tamne jenjen dadu den katam na chiba nabi. Sibe sonen jovan jobare shu.
To the teacher, the last one who full truth, completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfecting knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, no other word, supreme guide of each to the king. Teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Chandrakirti, I prostrate make offerings and go before you. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one before the Bodhisattva, completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, no other word, supreme guide of beings to the king. Teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, secure from the Chandrakirti, I prostrate make offerings and go forward. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one conqueror, for this truth, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfecting knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, no other word, supreme guide of beings to be attained. Teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, secure from the Chandrakirti, I prostrate, make offerings, and call for refuge. When the supreme among humans, you upon this earth, you placed our seven stars and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I prostrate. With pure bodies formed supremely pure, wisdom motion like golden mountain, flame that blazes in the three worlds. You know the past, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, the three worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the one gone to thusness, I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality. To that Dharma which pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realization, who are devoted to the moral precepts. to you the sublime community intending virtue like prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, mirage, a flame of a lamp, illusion, a drop of dew or bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain rank of all-seeing, subdue the flow of thoughts, and be delivered from motion of suffering, of aging, sickness, and death.
Sanje Shadang Soje Chandang La Chanchu Patun Dane Jesu Che Dage Jesu Jepa Sonam Dala Benje Sanje Jepa Shuwa Sanje Shadang Soje Shadang Chanchu Patun Dane Jesu Che Dage Jesu Jepa Sonam Dala Benje Sanje Jepa Shuwa Sanje Shadang Soje Shadang Chanchu Patun Dane Jesu Che Dage Jesu Jepa Sonam Dala Benje Sanje Jepa Shuwa Sanje Shadang Soje Shadang Chanchu Patun Dane Jesu Dage Jesu Jepa Sonam Dala Benje Sanje Jepa Shuwa
I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings.
통제 제마로 자아들론 대다선 제심대 대한되는 대신시 관자주마 양도 조베 선제를 받아 자존대 만대वर 시험은 지된 점을 기본되고 강로죠 라나메바 라나메 단계된 것은 제심대 대해서 지시시 관대 손은 다게 되도 개회사와 너무 심해서 버스가라도 좀 손은 제대로 넘지시 배제서 못 넘게 저 채는 점도 제고 주요는 것도 못 넘게 된 범위 대변에 만나는 거라고 셰럽 시점에도 또나는 제범에 심지어도 제제 템바 창조 선반는 제제고 파별 가서 제제 번장에 내도 총제는 좀 제제 이제 봐도 매번 봐와 선제 매저 손남으로도 양념 먹고제도 좀 매지고 고송만 매번도 못하고 소다게 녀와 먹고 소매바다다 맞아봐 돈에 나나버 주고 공부도 나나버 주고 감나도 매대 계제나만도 뭔데 바나 신도 주고 영송도 왔다 나버 주고 세발로 주고 추고로 개고 이제 영송도 반대 바다 맞아 맞아 다들 좀 배선지 좀 된데 이제는데 양에는 대바는 매대바 양다반이 이제 탈란데 심지어 통제마서 그선을 주고 대단해야 선지 좀 된데 주고 주고 있는데 양다반 너무 소와 배신을 토막이고 봐도게 토막이고 대야상 뭐 센터서 보면 돼 영송도 영송 장관이 하다고 또 엠베고 뒤쳐보면 뭐도 대토는 되고 개발은 이제 소소한 게 지금 좀 전에 넣어서 저도 넣어버렸던 거 이제 좀 좀에 저도 그렇죠. 믿음 밤에 전에 받았는데 맞다마 이거 저거 태바신 벽에 되는데 넣어버리고 때문에 요즘 차제베에서 집어 손은 집에 지신이 저 좋아지 본지 맨날 저기고 군동한 집에 맨날 저기고 첨보고 가게에 두세냐 손나 다와 터져 보면 저 담배전에 들고 고담 되고 차세 뭐 So we are on the page 229. So distinctions within the conventional truth from the perspective of the world. So perspective of the world in Prasangika school, so they so ultimate truth, the conventional truths, everything has to be included in the true truths. So when it comes to conventional truth, is a conventional truth is conventional truths, the truth related to the conventional. So truth related to the mundane's, perspective, or truth that is related to the, worldly perspective is a conventional truth. So the opposite of that conventional truth is ultimate truth. There's the ultimate truth means it is ultimate and it is the truth. And the ultimate means referring to the noble wisdom, truth for noble wisdom, right? So it's definite. So the conventional truth has a name of the truth that regarding to the conventional or worldly perspective. Worldly truth, worldly truth was a conventionally truth. So in Prasanga school, just two truths, the ultimate and the conventionals. So now distinctions, conventional truths. So again, dividing conventional truth from the perspective of the world. So within the conventional truths of the two, the objects and subjects within the conventional truth, to state that the class of subject includes, from the perspective of the worldly cognitions, both those that are valid, vertical, and those that are distorted. So within the conventional, within the worldly perspective, some conventional are worldly accepted as false, and some conventional are worldly is a correct or vertical, right? So imperative. So within the conventional perspective, some of those conventionals are, not mistake, and some are false. So, and then Chandrakirti text. So false visions is also said to be of two kinds, that of the clear sense and that of impaired sense. Cognitions deriving from impaired sense are held to be distorted compared with those of the unimpaired. Not only is the class of knowable object differentiated into two truths, so now object and subject, they both, and from the perspective of the world, divided into two. Object divided into two, distorted and vertical, and also subject regarding to the consciousness. There's some of the consciousness worldly accepted as a false and worldly accepted as a correct. So false vision is the case of the subjective mind is also said to be a two kind. So those that are vertical and those that are distorted. So they are that of clear sense, untainted by the temporary condition of the illusions and the cognitions based upon them, and that of impaired sense, the subject tainted by temporary conditions of illusions. Of these, the cognitions deriving from tainted sense are held to be distorted compared with those of the unimpaired. So cognitions untainted by a temporary condition of illusions, the former cognitions of clear sense are accepted to be apprehended object without distortions. So distinctions between the two is drawn not from Madhyamika's own standpoint, but from the perspective of the world or everyday world. So just as the class of the subjective cognitions is differentiated into terms of the distorted and undistorted, so this is true for class of the object as well. That this is so is stated in the following. Everything the sixth unimpaired sense grasp and as a perceived within the everyday experience of the world is true from the perspective of the world. Rest, the world itself, defines as a false. So even the sensory perceptions that are worldly accepted as a false or the distorted, so sensory perception is impaired temporarily by medicine or elements or in outer conditions. So like here, the mirage image is worldly accepted as a false. And the mirage image, mirage and the mirror image. And then the, how's that? So, and then the blue, orange, and the houses, the thing, horses, the cows, these objects that perceived by the sensory perceptions are not distorted, or it's a vertical. So the mundanely we accept that is the valid sensory perceptions, right? So temporary condition means temporary conditions temporarily or change or damaged by the damaged by the like emotional or element. So like out of angers, the eye consciousness see things, everything is red, is the consciousness impaired temporarily by the anger. And then some kind of like alcohol that also creates some illusions. So those sensory perceptions temporarily damaged by those temporary conditions are worldly accepted as a false or distorted. And other than this, other than those like eye consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, anything that object perceived is objects that are not distorted or so everything the six has an unimpaired sense grasped, perceived within everyday experience of the world is true from the perspective of the world. And the rest, the world itself, defined as a false. So the temporary conditions, the damage that done by the temporary conditions can be inner conditions like inside imbalance of the body or the emotion, or the outer conditions like the herbs, the things that can damage the sensory perceptions, or sometimes it's caused by like car, a boat, or airplane. So this can also damage some kind of distorted perceptions, sensory. So this is how the worldly understands the false and not false. So this is also trying to say that in a Prasangika school, and from the perspective of the noble wisdoms, and all the conventional on the one side is a false vision, false perceptions, right? And noble wisdom and the meditative equipoise are the only undistorted. Right. So from the perspective of the world, there are even the conventional, some are correct, did not distorted, some are distorted. So that counts in the object and subject mode. Right.
Can you clarify something? Okay, when we talk about
Larry,
yes, can you hear me?
can you? Yeah, I think you have to be a little bit closer.
You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so my question is about invalid and invalid conventional truth. And it seems to me that even generally we say someone sees all eyes, shyness.
Larry, can you be a little bit closer to the speaker? Yeah.
Maybe it's my headphones.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, much better now.
Okay,
so it disappears.
You must have accidentally touched them.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's muted.
You're muted. You are muted. No sound. Okay, yeah.
Oh, no wonder.
Yeah.
Now, are you gone?
Yeah. He's gone.
Wow.
I'm having some problems here. When we talk about valid and invalid conventional truth, generally we talk about it from the perspective that the individual does not agree with the majority. Like if the majority sees the sky as blue, I see the sky as red. That's invalid conventional truth, because I don't see the way everyone else is. And now if we take something like racism, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. If we take something like racism or nationalism or any kind of something like that, where the whole society sees itself as superior or correct, you could say the person who disagrees has invalid conventional truth. But I think in this case, it's not the individual who has invalid conventional truth, it's the society. You have a social distortion that most people agree is valid, but in fact, what most people think is invalid. So it seems like to talk about valid and invalid conventional truth is not just an issue of seeing different than the society, and a person who doesn't agree as invalid conventional truth in terms of the biases of the society.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is the invalid conventional truth is the society itself. The individual may see things much more clearly than the society. So can you clarify this point? Because it seems to me this whole thing about invalid conventional truth does not just simply rely what the majority see or think.
Yeah, I think some of this socially, considered to be valid, invalid, or moral and immoral. So that if that is socially, that's something to do with their culture or the point of views or the religious kind of background. So then it comes it's a second kind of a second category. Right now we are the Chandrakirti is just kind of touching up on those sensual. So how things the sensuals could damage temporarily by the temporary conditions, and that's how this worldly everyday people says this is false and this is not false, and then uh, after that, then this is called ordinarily, ordinarily defines something is false and something is not false. Yeah. Now, and after the another thing is not talking about ordinarily how things perceived false and not false. It's rather kind of like conventionally, like some of the uh, you know I don't know what to say. Yeah, some kind of morality immorals that is projected by the religiously or some kind of philosophical point of views. So these are not understood by the ordinary perceptions to be wrong or not wrong. So it rather is a little bit go a little bit, more what do you call? Yeah, for right now we are talking about like even the cow herders, the kids, right? And then who are not really educated. So those people also understand some of the sensory perceptions are false, some of the sensory perceptions are valid. So because of they can witness the how things are really perceived by the sensory perceptions and how things really exist in the reality. Like as I mentioned, the if you take some kind of medicine, the herbal, here it's used the example of Tatura. There's some herbal that by taking it, you can see things, everything's yellow. So this does not require any education or any intellectuals. So you can still understand this is false. The perceptions, what are called distorted or undistorted. So next kind of the second steps, so that again they worldly consider the false and not false. So then it comes in like in the moral or immoral, or right or wrong. So some of the religious things that or who are not accepting the creator, they will go to hell, right? And some says, these people, the things that even you're doing whole lives doing wrong, by accepting the creator, you may go to the heaven. So now this is this view comes from the religious kind of how's it called, belief. Yeah, it's belief. Yeah, and then the another category that says, oh, is the Atma that is permanent, that never dies, If the body dies, and this Atma will continue to remain existing, and then go to the next life and born in somewhere, and then again that body that died, the Atma never dies, is a permanent. So that is also one of the here's invalid philosophically and presented or some kind of projected the
the idea or the permanent I. So invalid, philosophically, projected the. So this is also like philosophically, and invalid philosophically projected the permanent I, and then with believing, just from believing, and then projecting some kind of people not accepting the God and they will go to hell rooms. People who are accepting the God, no matter what, how he, despite of his negative actions, he will go to the heavens. These are all can be understood in this worldly perspective, and the right or the wrong. So, and here the point is saying, even though everybody accepted my I consciousness is not mistaken. I can see this tree, a green tree, yellow, green leaf, and and then I see the green leaf, and you see the green leaf. So all the religious people can see this green leaf. So then this consciousness, the perceiving the green leaf, is the valid and not distorted. So that even in the Prasangic school, from the Arya's point of view, that even is the wrong perception, false perceptions. Right? So worldly, everybody, agree the I consciousness seeing the green leaf is the valid and not mistaken. Now, from the perspective of the, understanding or dependent originations, so from there you can say this even consciousness is also has mistaken with respect to the appearance, right? So this cannot be understood, mistaken by any worldly perspective, right? So the rest is just, you can, some the belief systems, because they're always followed by believing. So they have no interest to find the logic to prove it, and for that reason, so it is pointless to argue the debate with that. So we can just agree. So because they don't really seek any reason, because they want to believe. So we cannot say you cannot believe, right? And then the Atmas, they try to find the logic, invalidly establishing, existing of the permanent I as Atma, so that we can refute, because for them to believe in that Atma, they need the logic and reasoning. So they don't say, I'm just blindly believing the permanent I. So this is the I is the owner, right? And it is not the body, it is not the feeling, it is not the perceptions. Therefore, I should be exist independent, right? So if that is the case, the I or the self of the person is, exists by depending on the body and the feeling and the perceptions, but because it's not found as a body, not found as a feeling, not found as the I consciousness, not time consciousness, therefore you want to say this is independent. So then we say the government must be independent from the people. So the government is not you, right? You are not the government. Government is not the house. Government is not the constitution. Government is not there. So government must be independent and permanent. If the government is permanent, why politicians trying to change that? Right? Why often we see the government's policies changing? So that kind of, we can debate or argue, bring the argument to refute that kind of idea. So others, the rest is just from the believing, then there's no debate. So we just lower your head, says, yes, you're right. So the Prasangic school, the main point is saying that, the ultimate truth, the empty of intrinsic existence is the, how to say, it is revealed by uncontaminated wisdom, is revealed by, noble wisdoms, is revealed by meditative equipoise, right? A noble eye. So therefore, this is the ultimate truth. When this is the ultimate truth, is a definite. So then, opposite of that is the conventional reality that we always engage, perceive, we are conceiving, and all the emotions that is, active because of those conventional realities. Those realities, conventional realities, are always, perceived by the conventional perceptions mistakenly perceiving every day as a conventional reality, right? So those conventional realities appears to the conventional perceptions mistaking all the time. Even the eye consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, these object that appears to the sensory perceptions mistakenly, eye conscious, nose conscious, tongue conscious, also perceiving them mistakenly. Yes, Larry?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Okay, yeah.
I understand. You're saying that this is not in the area of something obscured by belief, but this is in the area of raw perception, if I understand you correctly, and that people in general would not disagree with this raw perception unless there was something like datura or psychosis or whatever obscuring their raw perception. So we're only talking about raw perception here, it seems to me, if I understand your point correctly.
The raw perceptions, raw means now, are you talking about raw perceptions is,
what enters from the sensory doors?
Uncooked perceptions. So therefore it's raw. So our eye consciousness is uncooked, right? It's not really understood well, but still we are kind of, satisfied. We are not, we don't, there's no kind of difficulty accepting what I see, what I smell, what I hear, right? So yeah, it's good, the raw perceptions, yeah. So the main point that Chandrakirti is trying to point out is saying the ultimate truth is a definitive. It is a definitive. So which means it is perceived, revealed by uncontaminated wisdom, right? Unmistaken, uncontaminated wisdom. Other than that, every objects are conventionally, right? Is some of the objects are ordinarily perceived, and some of the objects ordinarily perceived means color, sound, smell, taste, tactilities, so ordinarily perceived, right? So without knowing the reality as it is, you can still perceive the color that appears to you, sound, smell, taste, and textures, right? And then within the conventional, some of the conventional, like the philosophically projected, like atmas, and then the liberation as consciousness without object. So these the perspectives, or these perspectives are mistaken and wrong. So even in the conventionally, right? So liberation is the mind without object is conventionally we can, and you can prove this is mistaken, because there is reason, the valid reason to disapprove that consciousness without object is impossible, right? So therefore, this kind of concept of liberation without consciousness without object is conventionally mistaken. So here the examples, like kind of in the set as the sensory perceptions, everything that six unimpaired sense grasped, sense unimpaired by the temporary condition of the illusions, and perceived within the everyday experience of the world. This is true. So unimpaired means, sense power has no damage. Your sense power is not damaged. It is not damaged by any temporary conditions. So with that, anything that you see and smell and taste are, is it true from the perspective of the world. So true are the verticals within the framework of formal perspective of the world. These objects are not presented as being true. These objects are not presented as being true or vertical from the perspective of the Aryas, right? So the worldly and accepted is unmistaken and vertical, but still it is not accepted, vertical and unmistaken, from the perspective of the Aryas. Yeah, from the perspective of the, noble wisdom, right? So this is why the worldly is, unimpaired or worldly undamaged. Here, the two phrases from the perspective of the Aryas and from the Madhyamika standpoint share the same meaning. So from the Madhyamika standpoint, it is not not vertical. But from the perspective of the world, yes, it is the vertical. It means your eye consciousness, which has no damage at all, right? With that, you see things are vertical from the point of view of the mundane perceptions, right? Now, it is still not vertical. It's not still unmistaken from the point of view of the Arya's perspective. So the rest, such as mirror image and so on, which are perceived as object when the senses are impaired, like a mirror image, and so on, which are perceived as object when the senses are impaired. The world itself defines as false. So the worldly perceptions knows these are mirror image, is not a face, right? It looks like a face, is not a face. So the term itself here suggested that to establish these cognitions as deluded. So valid conventional cognitions alone is adequate. So from the worldly perspective, there's one part of the worldly perceptions understands the mirror image is false, and then the so alone is adequate. So alone is adequate means to prove, believing in a mirror image as a face, to prove the mistaken and wrong, you don't need the wisdom realizing emptiness. You don't need noble ayas and the wisdom, knowledge. So you can prove this is the mistaken within the worldly perspective. So there is no need to seek recourse in relations, cognitions, inquiring into suchness. The condition that impairs the sense from within refer to the cataract. So, blurry, visions, having yellowish visions, eating datura, fruit, and so on. Datura is the raisin plant, and when its fruit is consumed, everything appears to golden, yellow color. Yeah, the phrase and so on include the disease epidemic, among the other things. So the condition that impairs sense from the without are impairs the sense from without mirror cave as a acoustic, right? Acoustic, the bright colored
acoustics.
acoustic sound.
Yeah.
So bright colored scent when stuck by the spring sun, and so this is the kind of the basis for the mirage, the appearance of the mirage. So spring sun, the heat on the sand create the bright color scent. So that appears to the eye consciousness as a mirage, and that kind of deceives the mind to see there is the water, right? So these eye consciousness are damaged by the temporary conditions. And so on. In this case, even though the conditions distorting the sense do not reside within the person, they still become the cause for apprehending the mirror image, echoes, and the mirages grasp as water. One should also understand these class of the external conditions of all illusions to include the spell, relevant substance prepared by magicians. So the illusions like phenomena like horses and elephant, conjured by the magicians, right? So these are, still in the conventional or worldly perception. The worldly perceptions knows these are false. So you don't need this to prove the wrong, and you don't need the wisdom realizing emptiness. The condition that impaired mental cognitions include the addition to such spell and the relevant substance, distorted philosophical views. And similarly, the distorted philosophical views, false argument, impairment by sleep, like a dream to create the dream object, impairment by the sleep, and so on. Since sleep is distorted, described here as a factor that impair our mental faculty. From among the six senses, those who claim that Master Chandrakirti accept sensory perceptions to be present in sleep represent the great distortions. So Chandrakirti do not accept in the dream state or dream mind. Some of those, as in the dream mind, they are the sensory perceptions. Sometimes it sounds like in Tantrayana, some of masters they kind of they assume there's some kind of the sensory perceptions within the dream state of mind. So which means this all kind of impaired sensory perceptions or impaired the mental consciousness. So anything that is caused by the temporary conditions, sleeping or the philosophical wrong kind of distorted philosophical point of views, anything that project still we can prove wrong or the mistaken within the worldly perspective. So this being so, the causes of impairment in the particular context here should not be held to be the impairment caused by as a contamination of ignorance. So these are not due to the misconceptions, right? These kind of mistaken sensory perceptions, this dream-like phenomena are not caused by it is not due to the misconceptions. Which means it is not a misconception. So, which I think is also implying that misconceptions is the conventional reality. Misconceptions and conventional reality, to prove this is mistaken, you need noble wisdom. So, worldly perspective cannot prove the misconceptions as a wrong or the mistaken. So the rest, all these kind of mistaken sensory perceptions and the so mirage as a water, mirror image as a face, is to prove them mistaken or the wrong, not require noble wisdom. So in particular context here, this should not be held to be impairment caused by the contamination of the ignorance, such as of the two forms of the grasping at self-existence, existing of self of person, grasping of existing self of phenomena. So has a ingrained in us since the beginningless time. So we have a very thick, imprints from these two misconceptions. So these two misconceptions never understood as a mistaken, from the worldly perspective. So here's as explained above, the cause of impairment are the condition of illusions that impair our senses temporarily, and this distinctions drawn here, how conventional facts apprehend by the unimpaired sixth consciousness are vertical, and how those that are contrary, the distorted, remain solely within the context of the world perspective. So mistaken or not mistaken, can be, can be understood within the worldly perceptions. Such a perspective is invalidated by the everyday cognition of the world. From the perspective of the Aryas, however, no such distinctions between vertical and distorted conventional truth can be made, because all conventional equally falsely exist. So it's just as a reflection and the like do not exist in the reality as they appears, blue and so on, perceived, those who possess ignorance do not exist by virtue of their intrinsic characteristics as they are perceived to. Thus, no distinctions can be made between these two types of cognitions with respect to whether or not they are mistaken. So from the Arya's point of view, all the conventionals equally mistaken and falsely exist or unreal. The questions now with respect to such instance, in the perception of the false objects object to one's sense organs being impaired by the immediate conditions. Perception of people and so on in the dream due to the impairment of the mental consciousness by conditions such as sleep, and perception of the magical horses and elephant and mirage grasped as water and so on that occur in a waking state. It may well be true that even ordinary worldly cognition can realize that such perceptions are distorted. However, what is apprehended falsely by the mind impaired by the inferior philosophical tenets cannot be cognized as distorted by ordinary worldly cognitions. So the worldly cognitions too, generally the worldly cognitions and ordinary worldly cognitions. So here the ordinary worldly cognitions, the ordinary one of the examples here is the cow herders, right? So who hasn't developed intellectual kind of. So how then are such things presented distorted solely from the perspective of the world? Reply, the impairment here in the context of the examining whether our perception is impaired is not the impairment from the grasping at things distortedly due to our innate ignorance. So these temporarily, damaged by the temporary conditions, the sensory perceptions are not distortedly due to the innate ignorance, the misconception, ignorance. In any case, the postulation of the inferior philosophical tenets refer to the notions such as primal substance and so on, which are conceived falsely because one's mind has been conditioned by the philosophical views. So as I mentioned in the Sankhya schools, they say the source of the samsara is, source of the samsara is the primary substance. So the primary substance is kind of, it's a something that is generated from three conditions. So I think here in Tibetan they translate as dul, mumba, nyingtup. Dul is particles, which means things that constantly moving and engaging, right? So and then the mumba is something that is heavy and something that is heavy in ignorance or deceived mind. And then the third is nyingtup is it sounds like there's the permanent and the pure sense of I. So permanent and pure sense of I and the deceptive conditions and flickers, things that all the time is moving. Now this can, you can project within the sentient beings, you can project and in between you and Paramatma. So because of the Bhagavan is there, and the Bhagavan's, his activities, his radiance, and with that, and your deceptions, and you are confused, and you are just, in his activities. Now his activities are like, the color that you see, the sound that you hear, smell and taste and the textures. So then all the relations, all the concepts are activities as constantly produce and project or from the Bhagavan. And because of your deceptive mind and the heavy and ignorant, so could not understand these are the creation of the Bhagavan. So you think these are all solid and concrete existence. Samkhya school says whole, the object of the five sensual object and all these object of the concepts are, you should understand them as like, like stuffed things, like, you stuff things in the tiger skin, right? It's not the tiger, but it looks like a tiger. So this is the color that you see, the sound that you hear, smell. Actually, this is like a stuffed thing, right? So it just happened. It just happened to be exist. And actions, activity between you and the Bhagavan. So these are all unreal. This is the Samkhya school. These are all unreal. It's just a stuff, not real. So kind of grasping them as real and truly existing, and that generates the negative emotions.
This unreal is what they call primary substance. Right.
So yeah, the source that comes, it creates is the primary substance.
Substance
Yeah.
is creating this unreal.
Yeah. So I think there's the Samkhya school who believe in the creator, who is believing in the God, the Bhagavans. This is the creation of the Bhagavan. The primary substance is from the Bhagavan. And then the Samkhya school who are not believing in the creator says a primary substance is just happen to exist. And due to your single point meditations, your clear the vision of the reality, and then you look up to the primary substance will shy away, and you are liberated. So which means that what binds us in samsara, what confuses samsara are not you, is independent thing. It's someone else is doing. So the Buddha says, our cause of the suffering is your mind, and because not knowing the reality is the cause of the samsara. So this is a primary substance, right? So the primal substance and so on, which are conceived falsely because one's mind has been conditioned by the philosophical views. So you are, because you have, so invalidly, through invalid reasoning, you establish the existence of the primary substance in your mind. So therefore, your mind, the ordinary perceptions cannot disprove that. So true ordinary worldly cognitions would not realize that such notions are distorted. So there is no ordinary mind in you that could understand the primary substance is falsely exist. Nonetheless, if the valid cognitions, valid conventional cognitions of those whose mind may have not been directly informed by an understanding of this suchness, realize they are distorted. This constitute their being realized as false by the worldly cognitions. So your ordinary perceptions, like normal, as Larry says, the raw perceptions, your nose consciousness, eye consciousness, the trunk consciousness, your mental consciousness, all fail to understand this primary substance is true or not, right? So you cannot use the ordinary perception to disapprove or approve the primary substance. So you have to develop something more the greater intellection to constitute that or to disapprove that. But still, everything can be, this philosophically projections, superimpositions can be understood by the worldly intellectual.
Does a Buddhist also use the word primary substance?
No, we don't use. So Buddhists, they don't accept there's a such primary substance which is the responsible for your in samsara. Right. So what might you in samsara is not due to the primary substance, is due to your own ignorance and afflictive emotions. So the Ved kind of texts that, all the time, they're constantly proving there's something, this other than yourself is responsible for your suffering. And they don't want to say this is belong to Bhagavan, and they don't want to say this is part of you. So it's kind of, very, very tricky policy to continue the relation you and your Bhagavan. So you're still not sure. So, and sometimes the way explained as this primary substance as sometimes Mahamaya. So Mahamaya, so this is Bhagavan himself in the form of the, what called mayas, the illusion. Bhagavan himself in the form of illusions, kind of, female form. She kind of confused. She just put the fog in your mind. So and the Ved also says, in order for unveil this fog that is, caused by the Maya. So the Bhagavan says, from your side, one step, the rest step, I will lead you. So which means you have to put faith on me. So once you have, strong faith, unshakable faith in me, then rest just leave on me. So I will do. So how long it takes, then Bhagavan says, well, I don't want to talk about this. So for other categories, such as the reference conceived by the two type of grasping and self-existence, these belong to the class of what are referred to as an object apprehended by, unimpaired senses. So the, grasping a self person, grasping a self phenomena are still considered, in the worldly perspective, it is unmistaken, right? Yes, because the worldly perceptions cannot disprove that. So ordinary, apprehended impaired senses. Such things are thus vertical and true from the perspective of the ordinary worldly understanding. Nonetheless, they have no existence even on the conventional level. So independent self, independent phenomena are even not exist conventionally, but conventional knowledge, conventional and the worldly perceptions cannot disapprove if something is mistaken. So from the worldly perspective, it is the not mistaken, it is the true. Even that does not exist in the conventional reality. Born from itself, born from others, born from both, born without cause. So born without cause, maybe you can say, from the worldly perspective, say this is illogical. Anything that is born must have caused the conditions. And born from others, right? They're born from others. So this cannot be disapproved by the worldly perceptions. Such things are vertical, as you understand nonetheless. So one might ask, you may not distinguish the vertical from the false conventional truths because you do not accept the possibility of vertical conventional as such. But why would you not possess the subject, the cognitions tainted by the ignorance, and its object, the distorted conventional truth? So now the question is, if this two ignorance, grasping a self a person, grasping self a phenomena, so the objects of the grasping of self is not even exist conventionally, not ultimately, not conventionally. So then the question is, so in conventionally or worldly, from the worldly perspective, it is the vertical, it is true, it is not mistaken. So, but why would you not possess a subject cognitions tainted by ignorance? Why cannot you prove this is mistaken? Because it is the contaminated by ignorance. Its object distorted conventional truth. So why can you say, so if like an independent self, independent phenomena, intrinsic self or person, intrinsic self or phenomena, even that is not existing conventionally, so why can you say this is the worldly untrue, right? So from the worldly perspective, if the false, the existing, only you say is a mirage as a water, and mirror image as a face. So why can you say the intrinsic self is, from the worldly perspective, it is mistaken? Because you say this not, this the independent self never exists in the conventionally in the ultimate truth. So if it's something that does not exist in the conventional, why conventional knowledge can understand this is not exist? So this is the question there is, and then the reply. This is because the presenting the conventional truth by the valid cognitions, conventional cognitions. If one presents a distorted conventional truth, must be done from the perspective of such cognitions. However, valid conventional cognition cannot establish distortions, including induced by the habitual propensity towards the ignorance to be an error. So then there is no such conventional knowledge that could understand these two ignorance are mistaken. This is why, although it not exist in the conventionally, but conventional knowledge cannot disapprove. So even for the ordinary perceptions, like existing of the creators, the creator, the Bhagavan as a creator, is not possible to be. It is not true, even in mundane, but mundane perception cannot disprove it. So you say, this air that I breathe in, this air that I breathe in is not the creation of the Bhagavan, not the creation of Bhagavan, but my, body consciousness, body consciousness cannot disapprove. This is not the disapprove. This is the creation of the Bhagavan. Yeah, I think this is how it's happening in the during the elections. The politicians say things. So we know this is not true, but we cannot disapprove that. So we have to go for. There's both are their lie, and I just choose one. I have to. I think this is the. And also the scientific, like scientists, they kind of assert that every human being is coming from ape, right? So it's not there's not much reason to prove it, but we cannot disprove. So we just say it's better to accept it. Right. If the apes are, we are from the apes, so becoming human being. So maybe there must be some reason, some kind of reason. So at that area, at that kind of generation, or that century, the apes are becoming human being. Now they stop becoming human being. So right, in what circumstance, right? So weather or some kind of and some of the scientists they says, oh, not just app, like even the apps are also coming from the fish. So this kind of they're in the kind of this is a I can say this is the knowledge, is the intellectual, but intellectuals many times, like even the intellectual understanding of the possibility of liberation, enlightenment, is still it is conceiving through its own projection. So the how much the degree of the assumptions, how much degree of the fact. So you're trying to establish the fact through the assumptions, right? So assumption that is, it is pretty much there is some kind of mathematical, some kind of orders of the reasoning, but still you are speculating, right? So this true self, the independent self, a person, independent self, a phenomena, are not even exist in conventional, but conventional knowledge cannot disapprove. So the conventional knowledge can disprove. Therefore, from the worldly perspective, it is, there's a two choice, vertical or not vertical. So then it become vertical. Grasping the self, ignorance is vertical, right? So to prove is not vertical, and to prove this is mistaken. So you have, worldly perspective has no potential to disapprove that. So you have to choose one. So you have, so you have no choice left other than accepting is true. So how the apprehended object of that which is deluded with respect to its conceived object does not exist even on the conventional level. So how the apprehended object of that which is deluded with respect to its conceived object does not exist even in conventional. So, which means the wrong apprehended object, like prominent I, self-sufficient I, and then the independent self, independent self, personal phenomena. So do not exist even on the conventional level. So now to relate what has already been explained in general, how the impaired mind distorts its conceived object to specific context by way of analogies. The text says, overcome. Now this is talking about intellectually superimpositions. That is, it is not easy to understand right or wrong by ordinary perceptions. So intellectually superimpositions. Overcome as they are by ignorance, sleep. Tirthikas, and here's the old non-Buddhist schools. In Tibetan we call mutik. So maybe they're trying to say in Sanskrit here, postulate a self as with things imagined as real owing to illusions, mirage, and the like. This has existence even according to the world. So independent self, the permanent I. So these non-Buddhist schools, they are overcome by their ignorance, sleep. So their confusions, where they postulate the independent self as Atma, as with things imagined, in the realities, the self, the real self, real color, real sound, real smell, and the real textures, they exist like illusion-like phenomena. So the illusion phenomena, they make it concrete and permanent. So that is, they are overcome by their ignorance. Right? So Tirthikas are overcome by the ignorance, sleep. So their minds suffer from the impairment. So impairment by inferior philosophical tenets and the false logic, that because they wish to engage with suchness, but they have genuine desire, they wish to understand what's the reality, they do not uphold the accurate notion of arising and disintegrations that even philosophically untainted like cowherders, unlearned, and there's a woman, and so on, they acknowledge. So this, because of the one thing, good thing is they have a wish to understand the reality, and they are so much overcome by their confusions. And whatever they projected, they can impose and assert that even not making sense to the cowherders. So cowherders, they says, oh, it is impossible. Arising of the sprout is something that intrinsically exists. Or, there's self-arising, arising from others. So people who are not intellectuals, not learned, they always refuse. How can that be possible, right? Self-arising and arising from others, right? And so, yes, even the cowherders, find there's is incomplete, but they assert there is the Atma, the permanent I, right? So this is why the Chandrakirti's text, this says Samkhya. So you are, more ignorant than the cow. So even the cow understands their cow babies are not born from others. They know this is my. So instead, out of their desire to surpass ordinary people of the worldly perspective, they are like someone climbing a tree who lets go of the lower branches before grabbing on the next. So like branches that you grab, right? So before you reach the next branch, you let go of your. So they will suffer a great fall into, how say, abyss, abyss of inferior philosophical view. Abyss means
Like a large cavern, like a canyon
Deep,
in the ground,
oh,
hole in the ground,
okay,
deep.
it's a hole.
What would you?
Usually say abyss is deep, deep darkness or deep.
Oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, so fall into the abyss of the inferior philosophical views because they are divorced from the perfect visions of the true truths. They will not obtain the resultant liberations. Therefore, the self postulated by these upholders of the extreme view as are found in their individual treatises. So they characterized by three attributes: eternal, unitary, invisible. So I don't know. So this usually we call du, mu, nyingpo, as I mentioned earlier, the general substance, the primal substance. So it's something that is generated from three attributes or three characters, three characteristics. So dul is the particles. So particle means the constant flickers, right? And then mimba means the heavy and confusions, right? And then nyingto is the pure and the pure substance, right? So so this is what Samkhya school kind of they think these three characteristics, from there it's almost like it's a criteria to constitute the primary substance is something exists because there is a constant flickers, it's constant changing, and then each changes their confusions, and then emotionally heavy, and then there's a one person or the kind of pure substance, the pure self that because the flickers and confusions impacting on someone, so that try hard to go against that, right? So these are the criteria to 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 constitute something there is independent substance that are responsible for your samsara. So
This is still Samkhya's idea.
yeah, Samkhya's idea. So and then here's the eternal unitaries. Eternal is like permanent, forever, right? Yeah. So in dul is not eternal. Dul is just flickers and moving, right? So this is like the color that constantly changing because of the light and things that constantly changing, smells that constantly coming and going, and the taste and the textures and the sounds, right? So there is no certainty. It's all it never stops. There is no how's that? Nothing still, right? So these are the one of the criteria is there's someone who is doing this, right? There's something out there. It constantly, providing this things to see and smell and taste and textures. And then, so when this one has created, and there's some confusions, which ones or what is this? Is it good or bad, right? So it just more when you think about this is good or bad, and then it's already changed. Something else is coming. So that causes the mind confusions and a heavy experience that impact the self the kind of, the pure self, and then admired in samsara. So now, then how this general substance is doing that, and then what is the general substance? So then this is general substance is the manifestation of the Bhagavan himself. So why not Bhagavan is responsible for our suffering? Yeah, I think still in the people have this kind of mindset, like when there's the hurricanes and earthquakes, people always think, oh, there must someone who is doing this, or someone's not happy, right? The color they keep changing, and you're just going after, and then it goes, and then we wait for another ones. Another is not good as you thought before. So that kind of makes you curious. There's someone who is constantly projecting this to me, right? And so in some of the village, this is, where they wait for the rain, and then all the black clouds just, comes and then stays, and suddenly the strong winds, what's it? Blow away the whole blacks. Then says, oh, there must be someone who is, this problem. And then we should do some kind of puja. We should, right? Maybe, hang the flags or do some kind of smoke puja. So they think that it's wind. They know the wind is the one that blow away all the kind of, the clouds. But they think, who blow this wind? So, so wind is so confused. So they are not. So Dunju Yip the Kebadans. And then they also says, the design, the colors, and the different trees, different plants. They have each type of flowers and fruits, and when they see this kind of varieties, oh, there must be someone who is doing this. How come without this, no one, right? No one has, has a will to make these varieties. How can varieties happen? So they want to, right? Because they're not knowing. So they are not knowing, or they are avoiding each specific cause and condition, and they want to know one single cause that has to be responsible for to make white flowers, red flowers, orange flowers. So if they understand each seed has different potentials, so then maybe they're, so each seed has different potentials. The white seed that has, it only can produce the white flower, not the orange. And another seed that produce only orange, not the white. So this is the kind of the obvious things, and they're witnessing. So they kind of try to ignore on those, and then find one single cause who is making everything. So that's very, strange, If the farmers insist that we want one seed that can produce corn, rice, barley, so then everybody says, you are crazy. Now everyone is doing that. Everyone is seeking one single cause who is responsible for everything. So they want to worship that, right? You know? So, so I think this is very kind of, your desire, your kind of, how to say, your intention, your intent is almost you're worshiping your intents.
So this is where you were talking about 3 characteristics.
Yeah.
And one that was unitary. So this is the unitary. Even there's still a single cause for all the diversity. They're existing. A single cause is responsible for all the diversity of conditions and phenomena.
Yeah, I think to see the criteria for, criteria for the existing of the general substance or the primary substance, the criteria are changing, different. So the eternal, unitary, indivisible. So from my understanding in Tibetan, we say Dul, Mumba, Nyingdo. So I kind of, I'm not really going with this eternal unitary, because the Dul says it's not talking about eternal. Dul is the particles, something physical, motion. So it's not eternal. I don't know. Maybe the translator has better explanation. So how he translate Dul to the eternal. So Dul Mumba Nyingdo.
Unitary? What is the meaning for unitary? Is that like when you take all the 5 aggregates and make it one thing? Kind of that way?
So right now I'm just kind of, and I'm not touching on this, the 3 English translations.
Okay.
That's right. Because so the term that we use in the text and the saying that Dul Mumba Nyingdos. Dul is the particles. Particle means moving. And Mumba is like darkness. So darkness means it implying that the 2 things like heavy and confusions. So because of things, the flickers, the changing all the time, and then the confusions, the heaviness experience. And then the second, who experienced that? What is this 2 impacting on? And then there's this Nyingtop, So Nyingtop is the pure and the potential. So from my understanding is I understand from these 3 is saying that this whole object that comes and go to your sensory perceptions, and then this desire that is heavy and then the confusions, and that impact on the person, and then he kind of struggles in this because of this constant changing, and there is the heavy desire that keep following. The things are kind of everything is changing, but this kind of the desire and heavy and fixated. So yeah, so then these 3 conditions saying that there must be something out there, right? So that is the primary substance.
So these are describing primal substance.
The character of the primary substance. What makes you believe in the primary substance? So what are the criteria for you to believing in there's a primary substance.
So that would be philosophy.
Yeah, this is illogical, invalid reasoning, and establishing some kind of primary substance that you can blame on. That is the responsible for you being mired in samsara.
So this primal substance would be a non-existent. It's an imputation.
Of course, its primary substance is superimpositional.
Yeah.
Now we are trying to understand what makes them believe.
Yeah.
What are the reasons that they are very much believing there is the primary substance? So, but you and the Bhagavan, between there is a primary substance. But if you if you move that, or if you eliminate that, you make this disappear, primary substance between you and Bhagavan. So then you are liberated. So we are not trying to establish that. We are trying to understand what makes them believe, because of the sensual objects, the flickers of changing all the time, and the desire that are heavy and chasing, and then fixations. So that impacts on the person. So with this, and then you look at, why I'm not happy, why I'm not experiencing liberations, what binds me in samsara. So you cannot just blame on those things that are constantly changing, because according to Samkhya school, these are the stuffed thing. It has no essence. If this is no essence, why you desire heavily and fixate on those things? So then, because these things that fickles, right? That things that constant changing is never stop. So the way they're coming from, and then it says, oh, there's a primary substance. So this is like, what do you call it? The small baby there when they're sleeping, and you play with some toy, and you're just looking at it like, right, and he cried and he laughed. So he's kind of projecting on that, right? So this is like we are here, and all the colors, sound, smells, the Bhagavan is just playing to you.
So if I understand correctly, this is their explanation of samsara.
Yes.
Right? This is why we're stuck. This isn't why we're. They also have a concept of freedom.
Yeah.
And how one becomes free. But we're not talking here how one becomes free from their point of view. We're talking here of why we're stuck in a state, an unsatisfactory state from their point of view. Because they also have a view of suffering that they see as how can I put it, an unsatisfactory state to be free of.
Yeah.
So this is not necessarily what they say the ground is, and it's not what they say the path or the fruition is. This is what they say. This is their explanation of what causes us to be stuck in an unsatisfactory state. It has nothing to do from their point of view, because they also probably have view, path, and fruition, right? Don't these Samkhya's, they also have view, path, and fruition.
Yes. Yeah. So for example, you assume me as a Samkhya, right? I'm the proponent of the samsara. So now I say, so the Bhagavan and the samsara being between us, what blocks you to be able to, to be able to see the Bhagavan, or to be able to merge into the Bhagavan? And I says, yes, that is the cause of the samsara. And this is what we call is the primary substance. Now the second, and then you said, how this primary substance, kind of comes in between you and Bhagavan, and he deceives you. And then he says, oh, this primary substance create all this kind of, sound, smell, taste, and tactilities. So those essenceless phenomena, objects, keep, throwing at you. Then my desire is heavily chasing and obsessing with this. So that makes me, deceived and confused, So now this primary substance successfully, grounding me in the samsara.
Now, don't they also, from their point of view, have a view of emptiness? It sounds like they also have a view of emptiness, but it's not quite the same. Their view of emptiness is to be free of what blocks us from merging with the Godhead, if I could put it this way.
Let me finish this.
Okay.
First question is, first you raised the question saying, what is the reason that you think the primary substance is between you and Bhagavan? So I said, they keep throwing all this, the endless objects to me, so my desires and chasing, and then heavily obsessed with that. So I am mired in samsara. So therefore, I says, now the second question is, what makes you think the primary substance is making all the color, sound, smell? Then I would say, because it's the variety. It is the many types, many kind of, the variety must come from one source, right? So if there is a design, if you see the stupa, there must be someone who is to make this, who has a wish to create this in this design. If you see the house, so the house in the California, house in New York, so why there's a difference? There must be someone who has desire to make this for this weather. So then I would say, then those whole colors, the trees and everything has, it has a different effect. So there must be someone who has desire to make many. So everything has to come from one source. So now I'm saying this general substance exists because this color sounds will never stop until my last breath, right? So this has to be coming from one source. Therefore, I'm believing there is primary substance. So now to understand, now the third question you say is, and how do you really liberate yourself? How do you really can deal with this primary substance? And then I would say, through my single-pointed meditations, from my moral disciplines and single-pointed meditation and wisdom that understands all these objects he throw at me as essenceless. It's like a stuffed thing. And then, so that, that helped me to stop, my desire to, go after those essenceless object. So with, again, single-pointed meditations, then I will kind of, I can look at him, the primary substance, staring at this primary substance. I understand, says, you are the one that so far I'm in samsara. So then primary substance will shy away, just walk away and never coming back to me. So then I can merge into the Bhagavan. So then it seems kind of, this is what they say. Everything has to be like different house must have someone who is created. So then, so this apply, things that are humanly made, humanly created has the creator. And then the mango trees, the coconut trees, guava trees, each different, what is the creator of that? So they think because of the house has a creator, and then mango, coconut, the guava, and they all have one creator. So how can you say that everything is just made up by one person? So you don't have man-made and not man-made. Every water is man-made because your tap water is man-made. So your ocean is man-made. Right? Everything has to come from one single cause, which means you are believing single cause that produce variety of fruits. So if that is possible, this is what the farmers want, right? Buy one seed and then gives all kind of fruits. If that is not possible, then how can the primary substance, but one single by itself, and produces the color, sound, smell, tactilities? So I think, the reason why they kind of, there's some kind of, what do you call it? So they're compelled to believing in one source of everything, I think one reason is they don't want to, look into the reality. The reality, like as I mentioned, tomato seeds, the guava seeds, mango seeds, and barley seeds, the rice seeds. So people are very curious there. People understood clearly, this mango seed can give mango tree. This tomato seed can give tomatoes, right? And then this is very obvious. You see, this is too normal. So I want to abnormal things. So this is, I want to know one single cause that can produce. So that's why this is how's it, Mutibas here, what the name is, three Tirthikas. Tirthikas are overcome by their ignorance. So then their intellectuals are, overcoming them, make them more dull than, cowherders. So I think, this, non-Buddhist schools, they think everything is coming from one source. And again, within that source, the Bhagavan, and there's so many, the countless, the manifestations of the Bhagavan. Some with the elephant head, some with, male form, the female form, wrathful form. Countless, there's so many the deities. If you're so interested in single cause, why do you make one, right?
So do they see the single cause as having some kind of, you could say, motivation to trick everyone and make them stuck in samsara? I mean, it seems like, it almost sounds like this. They view that the thing that makes us stuck can also free us if we can recognize it as the same one. But we have to recognize it. But do they see this as having the single cause, as having intention at all, or not? Like the intention to fool us?
No. So there,
If
there's,
that's the case,
yeah, I don't think there are intentions to fool us. So they themselves are fool. So they have intentions, serious intention to understand the reality, but at the same time, so they are believing in intrinsic nature. So because of the strong, how say, convincing with the intrinsic nature, so then that makes them, or then that kind of the, maybe you can say, compel them to find one single cause, because everything has to derive from one intrinsic nature. So they don't really understand this relatively and this, dependent arising, or the relative existence.
but they're, in a way, you could say they're quite good already. Because even if they misapprehend the nature of arising or of appearance, they still have the same motivation to be free.
Yes, of course.
Buddhists,
Yeah, exactly the same. Yeah,
they're quite good.
yeah. Okay, they're good. Yeah. So that's why it's these are what we call our basic cultures. So from this we get, we have, keen interest to find the liberations. So because of this culture, there's so many varieties of the belief systems. So that encourage us to find what is the truth. Because this says this matter says this, and they're all different. And what is the reality? So the Buddha found this is just, so just simply being, your simply placing your mind into the reality, the understand reality as it is the Bhagavan. It is the bliss. Because it is the
This is a little bit of a tangent, I admit. And I'm taking you on a little tangent here.
little what?
Tangent. In other words, we're on a certain path. I'm taking you slightly off the path.
Taking you on left turn.
Like this question.
Okay.
I'm going to take you slightly off the path.
So there's the tea shop, coffee shop. You just one stop. Okay. So when you go this way,
I want to
take a little bit break, and then coffee shop.
A little coffee.
Yeah. Okay.
We're going to stop for a little coffee.
Okay.
A shot. But Dalai Lama is always saying, you should stay with the path you're on. I'm not telling you if you're a Christian, you should be a Buddhist, or you're Islamic, you should be a Buddhist. You should stay with the path you're on. So in a way, you could say, or I could say, by saying that, he can be saying two contradictory things. One, your path it's okay, your path will take you somewhere. So go ahead, stay on your path. And then, but on the other hand, he could be saying, you're confused, But go ahead, stay confused. Because your path, you believe is authentic, but actually there's an ignorance in your path. But I'm not trying to tell you to leave your path, even though you don't have the correct philosophical underpinning. So my question is, why would he say, in a way, stay on the wrong path? Unless he thinks that path will eventually take them some understanding, even though it's not the same path. That's my coffee.
Okay. Okay, that's your coffee. So now this is my chai time. Yeah, I think that here within the Buddhist school of thought, like Vaibhashika schools, Surandika schools, this is like a school of thought. We say here, the school of thought. So this is like a kindergarten, and how's there? Kindergarten and school, kindergarten and high school, college, university. So this is like step by step. So you can only move, to the next step when you understand your standpoint. So when you understand your standpoint, and you will see what lacking, so what need to be improved, then you go next step. So now within the Buddhist, non-Buddhist school, religiously in Hindu, right? And then some are not really point of views. Some are just culture that is intentionally, informed or imposed on you with good intention to the good person, to be harmless person. By imposing in you, by saying, there is the Bhagavan and he will bless you if you put faith in him, and he will do the rest, all the things that you desire for. And people say, oh, okay, right? So I follow that. So what Bhagavan says to me, and then Master says, Bhagavan says, do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform perfect virtuous actions, stay moral, be positive, be compassionate, be generous. So there's some kind of, good atmosphere, the good positive the condition that. And so now these people, because as long as they have, they generate the interest, the understanding, the reality, right? So then they can question what is the, the Bhagavans, or what is the cause of the samsara, what is the samsara, how the individual can, liberate, right? Gain the mokshas. So if you have no interest, when there's no interest, just simply following the cultures, and that's okay too. If you have interest to understand, you can follow the Sankhya school, you can follow, and the Jain's point of views, you can also follow in the Vedanta school of thoughts, you can follow. There's so many. And if you follow, you have to understand, so this is like, so sometimes we buy things, we never use it, but because you are obsessed with that, you don't want to let it go. You're almost like you are, what do you call it, the guard for that things. In this way, you follow one school of thought, then. So that is like, you are, you're considering the ownership is more important than what you own. So if I follow Samkhya school, then I don't want to study the Samkhya school point of views. And I say, I am Samkhya. Samkhya is my religion, my thought. So I am it. So that's kind of it. Never, you cannot benefit from the Samkhya school. So if you really study and understand, contemplate in Samkhya school, and once you understand, and then you can see, oh, this is not really complete. There's lacking, this lacking. So then you have kind of automatically you will move to the next step. So this how it is really, is as long as it's benefiting to the individuals, we should pay respect. These are still the path, the stairs that can lead you to the enlightenment or the liberations. So we can accept these are all good things, So when you are farmers, even the cow dungs and all the trash, we all consider, oh, these are all good. So I can use it, to put in the field and that fertilize all the crops, right? So like that. So even there is nothing really, there's no belief system or there's no point of view that we can abandon or, kind of emotionally detach them. And not emotionally detaching is not mean that I'm following that. So you see there's some benefit to individual. You appreciate that beneficial. So normally the ownership is always it causes all the negative emotion. Like Gelug traditions, the following Gelug traditions, you have drink chai in the Gelug monasteries. You have ate the breads in the Gelug monasteries. So then I said, Gelug is mine. So I do not know what Tsongkapha point of views, but Gelug is mine. So these people are always, troublesome. Yeah. So that's why in the Heart Sutras, there is no attainment, there's non-attainment. Buddhas, all the Buddhas abiding in the perfection of wisdom. So you have to be the knowledge. You have to be, what you understand. Try not to, try not to own, the knowledge. You have to be the knowledge. So the mundane is all about, the earning, gaining is all owning. So marriage, mine. So and the house is mine. So ownership is more important than what you are, what you benefit from the things that you own. Ownership is more important. Here, the ownership is the cause of the problem. Is you have to be the knowledge. So I think people who fight for the religion, fight for Dharma, is also ownership because they think they own this. So if you own Dharma, so you have to own impermanence, you have to own suffering, you have to own the origin of suffering, you have to own liberations. So I think the philosophical, different philosophers, when they debate, so they always respect each other's, calling them the rishi, the masters. In the debate corridor, they debate very hard, very sharp reasonings, and then with so much respect. So you respect that other persons, all these point, their view is not complete, incorrect, but they following them, they become good person. So this is very, in the India, there's a very profound cultures, traditions. Yeah, right now, these days the religious peoples are not really follower of the religion. So these religions like more like ownership, my religion, their religions. So it's more like rolling gin, not the religions. Oh yeah. Oh, Chanju Simjo Remoje, Maje Bana, Jeju, Deva Nyamba, Mebanya, Kone Kondo Pevers. Tonya Tawa Remoje, Maje Bana, Jeju, Deva Nyamba, Mebanya, Kone Kondo Pevers. Pama Simjan Tamje, Dedan Denjuji, Nendo Tamje Tata Tonga. Chanju Simba Kana Sushi, Tada Kunji, Monum Jubjubes. Carrera Webo Vishinozu, Pendant de Woman, Rujo, Net. Jeresan, Denzi Jazu, Shabe, Sideba, Denjuji.
May the precious holy wine that you upon the rising grow.
May the
Moon
moon
have no decline but increase forever.
May
May the precious wine dwell as in emptiness not yet upon the rising grow. May the bone have no decline but increase forever. Due to all these merits, may all Father and Mother sentient beings have all happiness. And may all lower realms be empty forever. Wherever there are Bodhisattvas, may all their prayers be accomplished immediately. In the sacred land surrounded by snow,
You are the source of all
that good inheritance, all powerful Chinese remain in this world until samsara ends.
Thank you very much. Thank you.